In today's podcast, we have with us Venky Hariharan. Venky's been a UX designer for, I think, 7 years of his life. He graduated from NYU, where he studied integrated media design. And since then, he's built tens of products. And currently, he works at Onething Design, which is one of India's top UI UX agencies. They work with clients like big banks, your Swiggies of the world, etc. And today we're going to talk to him about two things. First, we're going to talk to him about good design and bad design. What differentiates good design from bad design? What are the elements of good design? How to become a designer? All of those things. And second, we're going to talk to him about how to build a career in design, right? Who is someone who would be a good candidate for a UX, design job? How one can sort of build those skills, and we'll also talk about how he teaches UI UX design as a part of this MasterCamp. Super excited for this conversation. It's so great to have you, Venky. Super excited about the conversation today.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Glad to be here, dude.
Yeah.
And obviously, excited to talk about what we are doing here and excited to talk about all that, everything else that entails what we are doing here.
Yeah.
I think more excited about that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. No, so, let's start with the basics.
Okay.
Right? How do you differentiate good design from bad design? Let's start there and then we'll make our way.
You're just gonna jump right
We're
into
gonna jump right
it.
into
That's our introduction. What's good design?
What's good design? But I mean, to a layman, to a person on the street, how do you?
See, the question is so abstract. I'm going to answer it to you in an abstract
Fair.
manner.
That's fine.
Bad design is design that's visible, because you never know. You can never see good design.
Okay.
You will never see good design. You will only experience it, and even then, you will not know you have experienced it. Right? I think my favorite line about good design is, good design is like a good joke.
Okay.
If you have to explain it, it's probably not that good. So that's the difference between good and bad design. But on a more technical level, good design is design that is empathetic, that is research driven, it's people driven. And I say people driven. Most people say user driven. I say people driven because जो product है आपका, that has more than just the end user involved, right? It has the stakeholders as well. So you have your business people, you have your developers, you have people whose livelihoods and KPIs are dependent on that product. So you're not only building it for people at the other end of the spectrum, you're also building it for this side of the table, right? So good design is design that takes care of all of that while researching at every step of the way and testing at every step of the way.
So then give me an example of a good app or a well-designed app and a not so well-designed app.
You did tell me you want to be controversial here, but all right. All right. A well-designed app, I would say Spotify is a well-designed app.
Why?
It does what it needs to.
But so does Savan and so does...
Yeah, but not the way it's supposed to, right?
Okay.
It does what it needs to in the way it's supposed to, right? When you open Spotify, right, you have your algorithm that drives what you're listening to, right? Which opens up your discoverability. It opens up the way you listen to the music, right? And then they have all of these small surprise and delight factors, things such as song radio. People don't know about, not a lot of people know about the radio function that Spotify has. In that, if if you're listening to a song and you say go to radio, right, it'll show you similar songs, right? Now you can say that maybe YouTube Music does that. Ki aapne ek gana suna and there's like a whole list of songs underneath it, right? But that's not driven by the algorithm of the user. It's driven by the algorithm of the song alone. If you're listening to, say, Kendrick Lamar, it'll only show you things similar to that. But if I am listening to Kendrick Lamar, right, it'll not only show me people like other hip hop artists like Drake or Travis Scott or whatever. It would also show me like overlapping genres because I listen to a lot of different genres, right? So it does what it needs to and it does it the way it's supposed to. If you look at the navigation for Spotify, you only have three things. You have your home, search, library. That's it. Nothing more. Like it doesn't have your profile there. It doesn't have renew your subscription here or settings or kuch nahi hai. Niche bas, that's it, right? Search is bifurcated into genres. Then it's even further bifurcated into playlists that have either specific subgenres or overlapping subgenres. So you could even go into the search function and look at gaming music. It's not only music that appear in games, it's also music that you can play while playing games, right? So they've not messed around with that. The copy is on point, the navigation is on point, the algorithm is on point. They've done what they need to.
So who should take the credit in the Spotify team for the fact that Spotify is well designed?
See, as a UX self-proclaimed UX researcher first,
Yeah.
I would say the research team.
Right.
But I would say it's actually, it's actually a combined effort if you think about it, because it's not just the research that comes in, it also is the application of that research. So somebody not only needs to go out there and talk to people about what they're doing and find out if it's working or not and what they need to be doing differently, but there's somebody else who needs to decode all of that, right? They need to qualitatively analyze what has been, given to them on a piece of paper and gone like, well, this is how this converts to design. That, if 30% of people have said this doesn't work, it doesn't necessarily mean it doesn't work. It just doesn't work the way it was intended to work. So, then somebody has to convert that initial set of wireframes into something that is aesthetically pleasing, right? That entails its own set of research.
Sure.
Then there's someone else at the other end who has to actually test it and then come back and iterate, right? And there is somebody who's taking care of all of this moving parts and ensuring it all falls into place. So you can't actually give one person the credit and go like, he figured it out or she figured it out or they figured it out. It actually is a team game. Design is more of a team game than anything I've ever been in.
So you use the word UX researcher.
Yeah.
And not UX designer.
No.
All right,
No.
so let's talk about that a little bit.
Sure, man. So the thing is that people just look at the design world and go like, there's UX and then there's UI.
Yeah. Or not even, just designer.
Just design.
Just
like,
design.
design karte ho aap. Like, my father for the longest time thought I was just, a software
Painter.
engineer or something.
Not a
No,
painter.
like, yeah, no. I wish he thought I was a painter. That's closer to what I do. But no, he thought I was a software designer or whatever, but so design is broken up into so many different parts. Design is broken up into, it starts off by with discovery, where you create a problem statement, you talk to stakeholders, you talk to users, figure out the scope of the problem. So that's the discovery process. Then you have the research process, right? Where you figure out like user personas, you figure out ethnographies of the user.
Ethnography is?
Ethnography is like geographically centered user behavior.
Okay.
Like
what?
Like ethnograph. Like for example, if you are talking to Indians about say news apps, right? We have a tendency to read local news more than global news.
Okay, so sensibilities that are local to a geography
Yes,
have to be incorporated into the app.
yes. So that's ethnographic research, right? You have specialists in that too, but I'm not going to get into that right now.
Oh, really? So
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Everything. You pick a lane in design, and there is a
So
specialist.
like Amazon.in is so different from Amazon.com
for a reason.
for this reason.
For this very reason. If you look at the graphic for the Great Indian Sale, right?
It's like loud and Diwali.
Yes. Same thing for Black Friday, muted colors. Because, of course, ethnographically speaking, Americans are, react differently to colors, react differently to different design. So, for Indians, we need it to be loud. We need it to be like, jatang, as we call it.
Correct.
Right? Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, so, you have the discovery, then you have the research. Then is when, like, even then it doesn't come into wireframes. Then you have to build the information architecture, right? There are people right now making hundreds of thousands of dollars a year just by being information architects, right?
Okay, so you have to explain information architecture with an example as well.
All right. So you've seen the navigation of a website,
Sure.
right? For example, Amazon. Amazon is actually a horrible example.
Yeah.
You're asking me about bad apps. Amazon.
Well, let's talk. We'll come back to this.
We'll come back to this.
Put a pin on this. Yeah.
Horrible app. But you must have seen, for example, if you go to say any e-commerce website, right? They have a bunch of things on the first layer, right up top. It says home, categories, shop, whatever. Like you have 4 or 5 things. When you scroll over to them, they open up a bunch of more categories.
Yes.
Right. So that's information architecture.
So
it's actually a bird's eye view.
Pay someone $100,000 to.
Because believe it or not, that thing is such a pain to figure out from the get-go. And if you don't do it right the first time around, there is no going back.
But you can just copy, right? So if I'm building an education
You
app. I'll just
could.
copy the other education apps.
You could, but then that would mean that you are gunning for the other person's users as well, right? Which, like, if that is an established company you're going for, there is no way you're going to get those users out of their clutch, right? So that's
So you
why
have to offer something new.
you have to offer something new. You could just get the information architecture as is, right? And for the most part, it might work for you. But at the end of the day, then you have something that just looks like the other guy's thing.
Okay, so give me an example of good information architecture and bad information architecture.
Bad information architecture, Amazon again.
Okay. What is so bad about it?
Dude, it's all over the place.
But I get what I'm looking for more often than not.
That's because you're just searching for it directly. That's why they don't care about the other app. Like the rest of the app. What is the okay? Let me. You know what? You've been asking me questions. I'm gonna ask you a question.
Yeah.
What is the first thing you do when you open up Amazon?
I search.
Have you scrolled? Do you know what's on their homepage? What was the last time you looked through their homepage?
I mean, just maybe if there's a sale or something, then you.
Yeah, that is just on. That's on the first.
And then they
thing.
just
have
have
you
like
scrolled
grocery.
on their app?
Yeah, I mean, it just has all the categories just mentioned
Exactly.
there.
Yeah. So that's why, because they don't really, they know you're just gonna come in and search for what you want. So they've just not given a shit about the rest of the app.
So that's okay, right? Then, I mean, it solves the business problem.
It solves a problem for them, but it's a bad app regardless, right? Now,
so do you think if they had a better app, they could have sold more?
See, that's a hypothetical, and we don't do hypotheticals in design. We do assumptions,
okay.
And then we validate the assumptions.
Okay.
But hypothetically speaking, yes, if they had a better information architecture, even right, maybe you wouldn't just come into search. You've trained yourself to go onto Amazon and just search, right? But if they had it placed out in a way that actually works for their users, maybe you might end up buying more than what you came in for.
Oh, so what you're saying is that Spotify has great discovery, right?
Yeah.
It helps you discover. By doing this sort of cross
Absolutely. I don't go into Spotify just to search. I scroll through the homepage.
Correct.
Because I know I'm going to
get
discover
something. New artists, you discover new music.
Absolutely.
But Amazon, you don't discover new products. You don't.
Nothing. You've gone in just for the thing you want. Yeah.
That's what they've assumed. But perhaps it could have been a mall where you just enter and then you just buy this because it's there.
Exactly. You never window shop on Amazon. Like user behavior wise, when was the last time you actually just window shopped on Amazon? You don't. But that's what the homepage is supposed to be for. Spotify, you can window shop. You can just click into, for example, Spotify does a really cool thing where, like, in like during the day or during night, it'll say good afternoon, good evening, whatever, and then music for that moment, right? And then it'll give you a bunch of albums that you can listen to, and it might be people you've never heard of. And like out of the 10 albums that they give you, about 5 of them are people you never heard of, and 4 of them are albums from people you know, but you've never heard those albums. You know what I mean? And you end up doing so much more with that app, right? You end up, the stickiness of that app is way more than Amazon. That's a music app. Like, Amazon should ideally be more sticky than Spotify, but it's not, right? And that's also down to not only the information architecture, the way that it's, overall, like the way they treat
but
the overall design. Yeah,
I get it. But like there's similar products feature, the recommendation. After you buy a product, it tells you can buy this
yes,
as well.
Yeah, absolutely. When was the last time you bought something on the recommendation feature?
I mean, I see it. I see it's relevant.
Yes, it is. It is absolutely, and they'll bundle it up for you and show you, people who bought this. Like you can buy these 3 things together for so much.
Sometimes, I mean, I would say, sometimes.
Yeah, if it works, it works, right? Like if you're going in to buy something that has batteries, they'll show you that we can also provide you with the batteries, and that's helpful, right? But then why not do that? Like agar maine kara hai ye pehle, so why not have that on the homepage, right? Your history is on the homepage, by the way. Yeah, your history for
all my purchases,
is there.
So they should know that my diapers are finished now because it's been 60 days since I bought my diapers.
Exactly, right? Like you could harness that, but they don't, because they don't need to. You're right, to a certain degree. But if they did, there could be a difference there.
So is that complacency on Amazon's part?
To a certain degree, they have their hands in so many pies. They don't, essentially need to do anything at this point. It's a running behemoth that just, mints money, for.
So you're saying that there is a chance to beat Amazon essentially at their game
you do
with
it
better
right.
design.
If you absolutely, man, like if you think about it, if you just do a heuristic evaluation of the app and look at all the things that are wrong experientially, and if you go to fix them, hypothetically, you could build a better app. But that's the thing, you are gunning for somebody else's consumers, then that becomes another thing altogether. How do you get that, how do you rope in people who are already roped in, right? If they're already paying $1,000 a year.
But Spotify did that. at some point. I mean, I'm sure they must have. They weren't the first app for music.
They weren't the first app. They did it well, absolutely.
Mm.
Sometimes first to market is not best. You're right.
Yeah.
Sometimes you be best to market, and that's how you beat the market.
I mean, when all these messaging apps were becoming popular, right? So
Yeah.
I don't know if you
Yeah.
remember. Initially, Skype was being used in offices because it used to come with Microsoft packaged with that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And then Slack came, and we're like, yeah, nothing can be better than Slack.
Yeah.
And now there is Discord.
Absolutely.
Right. And I'm sure after Discord there'll be something new
I
as
think,
well.
Yeah.
But every time you feel that the product couldn't get any better, it gets better.
Yeah, absolutely. No, in fact, Skype is a great example that you brought up because it had a 13-year, 14-year head start on Zoom.
Yeah.
COVID hit and everybody's on Zoom.
Yeah.
So there you go. You can build a better
So
Amazon.
Zoom and Skype probably have the same infrastructure.
Yes.
Skype has backing of a much larger company. I think, I don't know, is it still owned by Microsoft?
It's still on Microsoft. Yeah.
All of that is going for Skype. They probably have a team of designers that's probably like envy of anybody.
Yeah.
Yet Zoom was able to essentially leapfrog Skype.
Two things. Zoom did two things really well. It firstly did not ask you to create a Hotmail ID to use it, which horrible idea. You already have Microsoft Teams, why would you want Skype to do that as well?
Right.
The other thing is, again, the information architecture. It has three things on its tab: meetings, create a meeting, and just one more. I don't even use that one. So my point is that there's a tab that says meetings, and all of my meetings even though it's on my Google Calendar, shows up over there, right? And the meetings with Zoom links show up highlighted, right, with a join button, right? If I click on my Scrum Monday Scrum link on Zoom, it'll show me a join tab. But if I click on like a project Scrum that I'm doing on Google Meet, it will not show me a join tab, but it'll show me the time that it's on, right? So it's using the calendar well, it's using a CTA well, right? And again, the information architecture, right? The information architecture, just to complete that thought, is just the bird's eye view of the product, right? Ideally, if you build it well, and you give it to a user, right? The information architecture, it looks like a flowchart when you build it, right? It has all the main, main navigation items listed out, and then sub navigation items underneath that. Ideally, if you build it well, and you give the information architecture to a user as a flowchart, and you ask them to complete a task, they should be able to do it on the flowchart itself. I should go here if I want to say buy something, then I go to the categories, I go to men's t-shirts, I go to this t-shirt, then I go, click on my size, and then I click on add to cart, and then, all of those things are all user flows, and you should be able to complete user flows just using the information architecture. And built well, that works, right? Amazon may, in fact, if you think about it, like any time you've had a problem with your order,
it takes a while. Yeah, it takes a while.
If you have to figure
Settings
it out the first time,
profile and all of that,
then it'll redirect you now to your profile thing from the settings. Then why didn't you just tell me?
Yeah, and if you Google something and there's a product which is Amazon US, it's only when you put it in your cart and then you're checking out, it tells you that actually it's not available in India.
Yeah, exactly, right? You could have just done that early on, right? So information architecture is that. Then there's also the layout of the...
Right. So one thing that I just want to establish that, there's a market opportunity to beat Amazon with design.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Done well, you should be able to do it. You should be able to do it.
And so for aspiring entrepreneurs, who think that e-commerce is something that cannot be...
Yeah. This is your opportunity.
This is your opportunity. Here. Absolutely. All right. So you're talking about layouts.
Yeah, no, so then, since you're talking about, what are the different opportunities you have in design? So information architect is one. There is, if you actually look for an information architect job, you will find that it's a specialist role and it pays quite well. Considering how old this industry itself is, it doesn't even need a lot of experience. 4 or 5 years of experience, you're already a senior architect, right? If you've been doing it for some time. And then is when you actually get to the design. You've done all of those things for a 6-month launch, for example. You are doing about 2 months worth of
discovery,
research, information architecture. And the other 4 months is when you're doing the actual design work.
The wireframing.
Right, the wireframing, then stylescape. Uske baad, usme bhi research. You have to then know if your users like what they're seeing aesthetically. Is this what will please them? I mean, if you're building, for example, if you're building for a wedding website, right, you would build something minimally in the US, but minimal wedding website in India
Wouldn't work.
will not work.
Mhm.
You need to have it really pop,
Yeah.
right? So उसके अलग से research करना पड़ेगा आपको.
Mhm.
Visual research is a thing, right? Then after that is when you start actually filling in the colors and the iconography and
Photoshop and
all of those,
Figma
all of
and
that
all
good,
that.
all of that things that
Mm.
people actually think is design comes at the very tail end of design.
Right. So I mean, I want to get to India now.
Yeah,
Right? We spoke
of
about
course.
Spotify, and Spotify was designed in what, like
I
one of
think
the
it's
US,
somewhere in the Scandinavia,
Scandinavian
yeah,
country. Yeah,
Norway, I think.
yeah, possibly, right?
Yeah,
And so was Skype.
yeah.
Well,
So was
but,
Skype.
but then Skype was bought over. So we'll
Yeah.
so let's talk about India. Are you proud of Indian UX designers?
Yes, now.
Okay.
I can say that now because it's coming up now,
Hmm.
right? And that was always going to be the case, though.
Hmm.
It was a fledgling industry when I started here,
Hmm.
right? I moved back here, in fact, knowing the potential here,
Hmm.
considering how digital we like how digitally how we were growing, how we were considered the next billion users,
Hmm.
things like that. So now, yes. So now there are places where you can actually see people trying, and especially post COVID, with the onset of digital transformation.
So any apps that are completely built in India, that you feel that this is a design team that
Yeah,
can sort of
yeah.
compete with that of Apple's and Spotify's.
Built well, we are getting there, I think.
Hmm.
There are,
Who
I
comes
mean,
closest?
see, in terms of aesthetics, Cred,
Okay.
they do that pretty well. I
Hmm.
think they've set out to do something and they're doing it pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
There was this other app, I'm not able to recall now immediately. But believe it or not, certain bank apps are doing pretty well. There is
Okay.
this bank down south called Federal Bank.
Yeah.
My dad uses that one.
Yeah.
They actually nailed it pretty well, man.
Hmm.
Like, they have your
It's a
checks
big
and balances.
information architecture problem by the way, banking apps.
Yeah,
Like a
dude, you
billion
have, oh
features.
my God. Like, my pet peeve is the fact that, like, they just don't care. It just looks like they don't care.
Yeah. And they
But
don't. I mean,
I am pretty sure they don't. Like,
yeah.
they'd much rather have you in their office, right? But Federal Bank has a great app, I think, right? And that's an Indian bank.
Hmm.
Cred, like I said, aesthetically doing quite well.
But
And
is
in
that
fact,
important? Like if it's so, let's talk about Cred. Let's go a little
yeah,
bit
yeah,
deeper into
absolutely.
Cred.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
So I hear that it's aesthetically pleasing, gray, minimalist, all of that stuff. But
Oh, it's not minimalist by a long shot. I
I'm
don't know if you,
sorry,
yeah, have you used Cred recently? It was when it started,
acha,
but like,
I
अब
haven't
तो
in a while.
मतलब it's like हर type का लगा दिया
Nobody
उनने
gives me a
वहाँ.
credit card, so I
Yeah.
can't give.
Fair
But
enough. Yeah, no. So it's okay. So the thing is, Cred started out.
it's slick looking. But is it good design in the way Spotify is good design?
नहीं यार, because it's actually apples to oranges. You can't really
Hmm.
compare.
Okay.
They do two different things,
Hmm.
right? When Cred started off,
Hmm.
what they wanted to do, they were doing quite well, which is pay off your credit card bills, on some rewards, and then
Sure.
redeem that, whatever, right? They were doing that pretty well,
Hmm.
right? What they are doing now is pretty much everything,
Hmm.
and I think that is one of the stumbling blocks of the design scene in India, is that every app wants to be a super app,
Hmm.
right? Right
I
from
was
your
gonna get into that.
Paytms to, sorry.
I was gonna get into that. Super
Yeah,
apps.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I figured because that is what tier two, tier three wants. So it's something that everybody wants to jump on,
Hmm.
right? We can all say Paytm looks the way it looks and it's all not all that great, but it
Hmm.
works for the audience that they're
Yeah.
catering to, and
Hmm.
it works well. So yeah, but coming back to Cred, they've retained what they wanted to do,
Hmm.
but now it's gotten lost in the sauce,
Hmm.
right? There's just too much happening in that app.
Hmm.
There are things that are just flying through the screen, jumping,
But they have to build a business.
flashing.
But they have to build a business right
You
now.
can build a business without having like horrendous graphics on there.
So I guess what you're saying is that when you start off, when it's a simpler app, then people
Yeah,
do the right
yeah,
thing,
yeah, yeah,
and
yeah,
when they have
yeah.
to balance business objectives and
You can
just
do that. You can do that. You can, increase the scope of your product without losing the main objective of the product,
Hmm.
right? It's getting lost in the sauce. You open up Cred, and the first thing you see is not pay your credit card bills, right? That is literally what you downloaded Cred for. I didn't download it for Cred Bounty, Cred Bounty, Cred Bounty. वो वाला नहीं,
right,
उसके लिए
right,
download कर रहा
right.
था मैंने. I downloaded it to pay my credit card bills,
Hmm.
right? So yeah, I mean, you could have done that better,
Right.
right? Like you could have just kept that as your main point
Right.
of focus, and
Hmm.
I'm not saying like just make everything else disappear, but maybe not have it hinder the overall experience, hinder the primary objective of the product. So yeah, so
So
that way
they could have done a better job.
they
Clearly.
could have done a better job for sure.
So let's talk about Meta, right? Meta has two products, Instagram and WhatsApp, many other products, but these two are its main, Instagram and WhatsApp, right?
Yeah.
Instagram changes its UI UX every 6 months, every year or something, right?
Yeah.
And WhatsApp has not changed in ages.
Yeah.
It's the same company, the same philosophy.
It is.
Why such different approaches in design? First let's start with Instagram. Why does it change so much? What are they trying to do? Like
Instagram is trying to keep up with the cool kids, is
Okay.
what it's doing.
Right.
Instagram is getting left in the dust thanks to, Snapchat tried, but they fell into the same rut of what Cred is doing now, which is doing too much. But TikTok has taken a significant number of Instagram's users, because again, TikTok is also doing a lot, but unfortunately it's banned here. But if you ever get an opportunity to use it, you should, because as soon as you open TikTok, you don't sign up, you don't register, nothing. You just start seeing videos, content, aate hi content. They're not asking for anything from you. What more could you want? That someone's just giving you free content without taking anything from you, because we are so used to the whole, register here, give us your phone number, give us your email ID, your bank account de do, sab de do, matlab, mother's maiden name, so, TikTok doesn't do that. And Instagram is trying to keep up with the cool kids. Instagram is, first it came up with IGTV because it wanted to beat YouTube. Then it realized YouTube was not even competition, because YouTube is doing its own thing.
IGTV failed badly, right?
In its face. Horrible. It was so horrible. I have so many qualms with how they launched that, but whatever. Now it has Reels, right? It tried to buy Snapchat, couldn't, so it launched Stories, right? Instagram launched Stories, then Facebook,
But
then WhatsApp,
well
and Stories did really well. And based off of that concept, not based off of that concept, but let's look at TikTok's precursor, Vine. I don't know if you remember this. I might be dating myself here by telling you this.
No, of course.
But like
6 seconds,
the 6-second thing, right? It was phenomenal. Like it was actually a cultural phenomenon. If people still know when I say what are those, they know what that means.
Where is Vine, by the way?
Vine unfortunately shut down some time ago, in fact.
Wow.
Couple of years ago. Yeah.
Interesting.
But it made stars out of all of its people. 6-second videos, and these guys are stars. You know what I mean?
A lot of people started with Vines. Who's that guy who jumps buildings and he does.
Oh right. What happened to that guy?
I totally forget. You know what I'm talking about,
yeah,
right?
Yeah. See, exactly.
He started in Vines.
Yeah, exactly. So cultural impact for Vine was huge. So, then Instagram did Reels, but then Instagram did Reels post arrival of TikTok, because it kind of saw where this was going, right? But it was too late by then. You already, when TikTok was in India, in fact, we were doing our own bit of research in that, because we knew there are going to be people in India trying to knock that off, right? And we weren't wrong. But we started doing our own research, so we know what this new tech is, what's going on and things like that. And the thing that we saw that really stumped us is the fact that there is this chai wala on the Delhi Jaipur highway, and he does lip sync reels, right? Lip sync TikTok, sorry.
Yeah.
And he gets some 200 million views.
Yeah.
It's just lip syncing. It's not even songs or anything. Sometimes it's just dialogues from other movies, and he's playing it out with his customers. And 200, 300 million views. Who's not going to do that? Yeah. Who's not going to jump onto that boat immediately? Because you can get views even without users actually being on TikTok. If you just downloaded it, you start watching videos, you are contributing to somebody's livelihood through TikTok. Right? So yeah, Instagram keeps changing because it wants to, hit something, ki kuch mil jaye, I don't know where the gold is, but I will blow this damn mountain up if that's what it takes, right? For that one nugget. So that's what they're doing. They're blowing up that whole product because they know that they're being left behind, and they know that they need to do something.
So we have established now that Instagram is playing catch up, and that's why it keeps changing. Its UI. Some of its experiments do well, some don't.
Absolutely.
That's when IGTV was a big fail. Stories and Reels, I think, are doing fairly well, right?
Their search function is also actually quite underrated, because if you watch enough things on Instagram,
but it's so hard to stalk anybody. Is that by design?
Yeah, I hope so. At least, yeah.
And like they've completely, ruined stalking.
Yeah. No. I hope it's by design
Mm.
because yes, I think that social media and
Like you can't
stalking. I
search
think.
someone by name now. Like it's
Oh yeah,
impossible.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
searching for
That's
Venky. There's like a billion Venkys, and
yeah. I'm glad.
were
Like, a lot of crazy
you
people
getting
out there,
stalked? Were you
man.
getting stalked a lot?
Yeah. No, look at me, dude. No.
After this podcast, hopefully a
Maybe,
few more,
hopefully.
yeah.
Hey, I'll
But
give out my social handles to you guys.
but let's talk about WhatsApp now, right?
Yeah,
WhatsApp, I don't think it's changed even a
it
little
does.
bit.
It does very minimal changes,
Mm.
which like go under the radar, and
Mm.
that's also by design.
Okay.
Like I don't know if you noticed, but like the chat box that's there, that has a little sticker icon there now, which allows you to send GIFs or stickers
Okay.
if you click on that,
Okay.
right? But people don't really know that, and
Mm.
that's again because that's not the primary function. WhatsApp has not changed because you don't fix what's not
Not broken.
broken, right? WhatsApp का primary objective is messaging, just communication, not even messaging. Let's say communication because it's added photos, videos over the years, right? That was also not there. People don't remember that again. Like when WhatsApp came in, it was trying to beat BBM, if you remember,
Yep. Yeah.
BlackBerry Messenger,
Correct.
right? And
BBM and iMessage. And
iMessage and all of that. Like it had its fair share of competition, but again, WhatsApp did it well. They just said, "Give us your number. We'll verify it's your number, and you can start talking to anybody in the world."
Mm.
Right? And that's literally what it did.
Clearly, you're a fan of easy user onboarding.
Oh, you have no idea, dude.
I,
Like,
I think that's half the battle.
yeah, that's
won
half
right
the
there.
battle won. You get your user onto your product. That's it.
Mm.
That's all you need to do.
Mm.
Because if the product is well made, you don't need to have an elaborate onboarding process. All that spotlight onboarding and having labels pop up anytime I do something. And अगर ढंग से बनाया होता है जरूरत नहीं पड़ती आपको ये करने की. You know, but you've
Correct.
clearly tried to do so much that now you think, oh, what if people don't get it? They won't. Even if you put like 100 labels there, they're not going to get it.
Mm.
So yeah, easy onboarding always. You know, get your user on board,
Mm.
get them started
Mm.
on your product, then watch them give everything to you immediately. अपने आप देंगे,
Mm.
you know. So that's the whole point.
Mm.
And WhatsApp did that wonderfully because they didn't change. They're still a communication platform first.
Mm.
है इसमें भी stories हैं,
Mm.
calls हैं, video call है, pictures, videos, stickers, payment. They're
Mm.
going to integrate with Geo now for their shopping.
Geomart, yeah.
But they are not going to change that interface of yours. When you open it, it'll still
It's
open
gonna
on
have
your
those
chat
lists.
window, right? When you
It's not
click
gonna have
on
a
it,
homepage where it's gonna say chats and then go to
yeah,
your chats.
exactly.
Yeah.
It's not going to do that.
Yeah, not
It's
gonna do
always going to have your chats.
Mm.
Yeah, with your recent one up top. When you click on it, it'll show you all of the messages
Mm.
that you have sent, all right, by label. And that's it, literally. And people who don't want to use the rest of it won't use the rest of it. And they're not pushing you to use the rest of it
Mm.
because they know their ROI is in, usage of these things,
Mm.
right? And that's the whole idea.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Very interesting. Okay. So, let's sort of, I mean, all of these discussions beg the question, right? How much of what we discussed in terms of, product decisions, whether it's a super app, whether WhatsApp's going to have other, how
Yeah.
much of it is actually the UI UX person's job versus, let's say, the product managers or versus, let's say, the CEOs, right? So, where does UX UI team lie in all of this?
Unfortunately, still not at the forefront, you know. But that's because if you were to ask a designer what needs to be done, we are an empathetic breed and we'd always go gun for the user's mentality and user preferences and things like that, and not necessarily, business first
Mm.
when it comes down to it,
Mm.
right? And I think that's a stumbling block for us.
Mm.
We want to make sure that our product is easy, it's accessible,
Mm.
intuitive, all of those keywords that you hear, we actually try and do it.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's not hawa mein.
Mm.
So, a designer, especially even if it's like, say, head of design
Mm.
at an organization, right? They would be part of the decision making process for business, but they might not necessarily be the lead in that process, right? They're a cog in the wheel because they are the people you go to when you want to get it done, and you might not necessarily ask them what needs to get done,
Mhm.
right? I think there's a line in Jurassic Park where Jeff Goldblum goes, you were so caught up in trying to see if it could be done, you didn't ask yourself if it should be done.
Mm.
You know, So that's the disconnect between business and design, right? And I think as things are progressing now, people are paying a little more attention to the fact that design, research, user inputs, things like that matter, right? And we should probably look at it from that angle, and you should probably involve design upfront because एक तो मतलब नाम ही गलत है ना. It says we call it design, so people think, oh, do, but like it's also a lot of see what to do before you do, right? So that is something that is now being taken into consideration, and especially here, especially in India, because out west it is a little more design led, especially the new age products are a little more design led, where even the business objectives, they try and make sure that it's good design thinking what they're doing, right? Obviously ROI is still king, and like your KPIs are still king.
But I think someone who's running WhatsApp is definitely thinking design first and not business first.
Oh, absolutely.
Had they been thinking business first,
they wouldn't be here.
Yeah, but they wouldn't be here today.
They wouldn't be here today. They wouldn't be like 10 people who made $12 billion off of Facebook's back.
Yeah.
So,
19,
19, right? My bad. Yeah, $19 billion, man. Look
Just
at that.
like 10,
That's
15
just,
people.
right? Like overnight, that's essentially what design did for you, right? Like overnight ROI for you, right there, if you do it properly.
And I don't know if have you played with the stock market apps recently?
Yes,
right.
I was actually going to say Grow is a really good Indian app.
I wanted to talk about that as well.
Yeah, Grow is really well made.
Their pitch deck, one of their investors told me once, was that their competitive advantage over like incumbents was that they're better designed.
They are, and they're designed for the next generation, right? You used a very good word, incumbents, right? The incumbent app is for the incumbent investor, right? But those guys are not like, are people who are looking at the design too much, right? So you have all of your Zerodha and everyone just, having those little bars show up as soon as you open it up. And, people like me, for example, who didn't start investing till say about 2-3 years ago, for me that was overwhelming as all hell, because एक तो math खराब, क्योंकि अगर math अच्छी होती मैं designer नहीं होता, ठीक है.
I'm gonna like push you on that a little bit after. That's a question.
Yeah. You're gonna ask me about my engineering background. I just know it.
It's gonna come.
But yeah, I mean, so this was designed well because, for example, I wanted to do SIPs before I got into like share market and things like that. I wanted to just do like the standard issue SIP ELSS thing, because I got tired of the FD Garlo thing that my dad always tells me. You know what I mean? Like that's a loss making proposition right there. So I wanted to know like what SIPs I should get into, why I should get into them. And Grow is informative without being overwhelming. Like the first thing I saw in the SIPs wala that dashboard is they have demarcated their SIPs as tax saving, as high growth, low risk.
So language that you and I speak.
I understand that. I understand what high growth means.
Not high beta.
Yeah. मैं क्या करूँगा इसका exactly? So no, low risk. I was like, yes, thank you. I don't know what I'm doing. I'll go into a low risk SIP. You know what I mean? Like I just want to know that I can put my money in here, and 3 years down the line, right, I'll have something that I can say is like a nest fund for me, right? Worst case scenario fund or whatever. So I know this low risk fund, I can just put my money in here and I can forget about it. Month on month, it'll just take whatever amount I put in, right? And it'll help me grow with that amount, right? So things like that. And even when you click on it, that's not it. Even when you click on it, it'll tell you, yes, it has holdings in this thing, right? But then it gives you a very handy graph. It has holdings in pharma, it has holdings in, like construction, like real estate, things like that. These things, right, you might need to be a little more savvy to know these things, what they mean. But even to a layman, like, okay, pharma
it's better than Zerodha, and it's better than the older apps.
Yeah.
As simple as that. I mean,
yeah, exactly.
So then, like, essentially what we are saying is that now that generations are changing every few years. Earlier generations every 20 years. Now generations every 2 years. Like I can't relate to my younger sister, who's 5 years younger to me. We use a very different set of apps completely.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's an app called, I don't know if you've heard of Paparazzi. Have you guys heard of it?
No.
Yeah, it's an app.
There you go.
It's like Instagram, but you don't post your pictures, you post others' pictures.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, that's the fact.
That's the app?
And it's like all the rage in high schools in the US.
Really?
Yeah, Paparazzi. check it out. And you basically publish pops, right? And so those are not even like videos. They are like those videos which are like those stopgap videos, boom, 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 boom,
Oh,
like
yeah,
that. So they have
yeah.
that like thing where it's,
Interesting. Why? Okay, never
and
mind. I'm not gonna get into that. Like,
but all the kids in the US are using it. So
really?
expected on Instagram soon, I guess.
Yeah, clearly. Yeah.
But my point is that now maybe in 3 years the audience will change again, and
Oh,
you'll
yeah.
need another grow,
Yeah.
right? And then
Yeah.
after 4 years you need another grow. So essentially, all the incumbents uh, have to sort of be very
Yep.
vigilant that in 2-3
Absolutely.
years, as the audience changes, someone else will come and on the basis of design just
Yeah.
outsmart them.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's a good point about like every 2 to 3 years, it does change. But that's the thing, though, right? Like, you don't necessarily have to be entrenched in the design you've made, right? You can be an incumbent by changing, right? 2 years, if you're constantly testing your app, any product, not just an app, if you're constantly just testing your product and you're iterating based on feedback, right? Qualitative feedback,
Yeah.
then you don't fall behind, right? No matter how much you want to say that Instagram has, fallen behind or is for like older millennials, not for the younger generation. The fact of the matter is older millennials are also tech savvy,
Yeah.
right? And we want to remain tech savvy. We are also, for the next 10 years, we are still going to be a force in the digital world, right? Yes, younger generation, Gen Z, and whoever comes in after that, they will be the focal point, but that by no measure does that mean that we'll become niche, because we are just as much a number, right? So maybe Instagram does it for that,
Right.
and even for Grow, like I said, like every 2 years, if they keep knowing what we want, what their initial set of audience wants, or what whoever they think is their primary audience, if they keep iterating for that, then there is no way you're going to fall
Well,
behind.
Instagram did a fantastic job. I mean, like they copied those features from
Yeah,
whatever.
exactly, right.
But you still need like intelligence to copy well, right?
Exactly.
Which
Yes,
they were able to,
absolutely,
So,
absolutely.
all right, so let's shift gears a little bit. Right now, I want to talk about sort of UI UX as a career. Right,
Oh,
we've
yeah,
had
yeah,
conversation
yeah,
more generally about UI UX.
yeah.
So you said something very interesting, that you were bad at math, so hence design. So walk us through that thought, right? And you know where I'm getting at, right?
Yeah. Yeah, no, so okay, so like any good Indian kid, I did engineering, right? And let me rephrase that. Like any good South Indian kid, I did engineering,
It's the same. It's the same.
right?
Yeah.
For us, it's a lifestyle, Pratham.
Yeah.
You-
We get
For
the
you,
option.
yeah, like, but the thing is that it's mostly because like I didn't really know what I wanted to do in life, and I sort of fell into design. I always tell people that, because by the time I went into my master's, design was only about 2 years old. Sure, Don Norman was there well before me, and Don Norman of the Nielsen Norman fame, like Nielsen ratings, you
Sure.
must have
Sure.
heard of,
Sure.
right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Nielsen Norman fame, right? So those two guys started this some time ago, right? But I fell into it around 2015 when I went to do my master's, right? And I my master's is essentially an engineering master's. I have an MS in design, not an MFA, right? And the reason I went for further engineering is because I was not sure if I was taught well the first time around, or was I just bad at it. So I just wanted to know that for a fact. And when I saw the curriculum for what I was doing, it seemed interesting because it sort of seemed very hands on, right? And I was actually not bad at engineering. I aced all of my practical exams. Like I, in fact, have like a history of like getting only A's in my practicals, but I would flunk my theories, right? Because again, like theoretically speaking, what we do here is essentially rote learning, even for engineering, which shouldn't be the case. Engineering is as hands-on as it gets, especially the field I was in, electronics and communication. Like you have to work with wires and little, the silicon chips and things like that. And I wasn't allowed to do that till like practical class, which was at the end of the day for an hour, and the rest of the 6 hours I'm sitting in class just looking at someone write equations on the board, which meant nothing to me, right? So yeah, I mean, I was bad at it. I was actually horrible at it,
Right.
right? So, but then when I came into design, especially the course I was in, it was so hands-on, and it let me explore whatever I wanted to do. I never had any written exams for my masters. All of my end semester things were things I had to make myself.
Okay.
Be it write a paper, be it build something from scratch. For my UX design class, which is now my career, guys. So that I had to build a virtual reality headset.
Oh, very interesting.
Yes.
It's, but so let's say I'm a good Indian kid, good South Indian, North Indian kid, whatever, and I've been pushed into engineering, right?
Yeah.
But I don't want to stay in engineering. But I still want to be relevant in the IT industry. I still want to be relevant in the startup tech landscape.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But nahi hoti coding. Right. It's just not something that comes to me naturally.
Absolutely.
So then, of course, the other, and I don't want to get into business side of sales and marketing. Let's say that's also not my flair. Right. I want to earn. Right. So now what? So then my only option is design.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So is it fair to say that if I want to stay in tech and don't want to code, then design is the right way to sort of go about it?
Yes. I mean,
Or product, maybe, I don't know.
I mean, so okay, so design, especially UX design or product design in this case, is at like the right cross section between logic and creativity, right? Because I took my engineering studies into design. Like the logic you apply to do things in engineering, right? You apply more or less the same logic while you're doing design, right? How does it work? Should it work like this? Why does it work if it works? Right? All of those things are things engineers ask themselves all the time, especially coders. If their code works, why does it work? If it doesn't work, why doesn't it work? Right? All of that objective based reasoning that's there in design, right? But at the same time, you get to be creative about it, right? You get to create things that you might not see the light of development, right? But it's cool to do, right? It is so much fun to just make from the ground up based on just objective facts, right?
So how would I know if I'm meant to be a UI UX person? Is there a test that I can do with myself sitting here?
Yeah.
And some sort of a thought experiment that gives me this confidence that, hey, listen, you know what, I should build a career in UI UX.
Yeah,
And I
absolutely.
could be from BCom or whatever.
Yeah, absolutely, dude. And it'll sound silly, but if you ask why enough times, you are a designer.
Okay.
So
can we do this with me right now?
I did it with you while we were talking earlier,
Okay.
right? I asked you when was the last time you looked for a product on Amazon? When was the last time you opened Amazon and scrolled to the homepage, right? Instead of going for the search.
Right.
I know that sounds very technical, but it's a very common sense question. Because what it told me is that you are someone who only opens Amazon when they want something. Right. And you can do that with me, in fact. When you asked me, in fact, you did it with me. When you asked me why I open Spotify or why I scroll through Spotify, right? Now, only step to being a designer is extrapolating that answer, right? Where you go like, oh, okay, so this guy likes to scroll through Spotify's homepage because he likes discovering new music, right? So any thought experiment is like any real world thought experiment that you want to do also makes you a designer, right? For example, if you've ever gotten frustrated with a door, right? Like if you, for example, doors here, don't say pull or push, right? So if you were a designer, that's the first thing you would notice, right? Minor inconveniences of life, right? But if you're a designer, you would also pull this door because you can see the hinges on this side, right? So that's the thing. If you see these things, like if you ask yourself why is something working, or how is something working, if you're inherently curious to know more, you can be a designer.
But everyone thinks that they're curious, right?
Oh yeah, everyone does think they're curious, but like if people act on it with a more common sense approach, right? And there are people who they will know that they are not just like curious in terms of like just morbid curiosity or like casual curiosity. It's curiosity to know why it works, right? Right? I mean, if you look at something, if you have ever, for example, downloaded an app just because you've seen the screenshot on the app store and gone like, I want to know why that works or how that works or what it does, you're a designer. If you want to know why things work, if you're inherently curious about how they work, you're a designer.
Got it.
And honestly, if you have common sense, which, believe it or not, I have a job because there is not enough common sense in the world, right? You are a designer. So yeah, I mean,
So
yeah.
what kind of an interview question do you use to judge whether someone is a you
Oh,
interview lots
yeah,
of
yeah,
folks, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah. My favorite one is what was your key takeaway from the experience? Like if someone's built something, right, and they tell me that they've researched with users, they've interviewed users, I kind of ask about, what they learned through that experience. And if the answer is along the lines of, I learned that, people work this way rather than if someone tells me that I learned I have to build it like this, then they're not a designer. But if they tell me I learned my audience works this way, this particular way, then I know they're a designer
Interesting.
because they're thinking about that user and building based on that thing that they have learned about the audience. Yeah.
So if they understand something, learn something about the subject, and
Yep.
then sort of implement,
Absolutely.
having incorporated that feedback, that's what makes
Yeah.
them a designer.
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
done. So now I know that I'm fit to be a designer. Now, how do I start learning? Like, what's the first step, second step I take to eventually find hopefully a job with you in your team? What should I be doing?
You can come learn with us.
Huh.
But outside of that, I think okay. So problem solving is like the inherent nature of design, right? If you want to learn how to be a designer, ideally, if you had the aptitude, the first thing you would do is actually go and Google it, right? Because that is how most people self learn.
Sure.
They go to YouTube. There are so many resources
But that's
on
also a
YouTube.
problem, right?
Yeah. So I'm actually coming to that.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So no, I mean, it's a good point.
Yeah.
There's a problem of quantity,
Yeah.
right? But the thing is that if you actually look at design 101, like just the basic level of design, you'll see that there's a lot of it is just the same, right? They will talk about all of the things that we've spoken about today: research, discovery, problem statement, yada yada yada. You need to have those basics, so you learn from anywhere. You learn on YouTube. There are so many different playlists on YouTube of people who talked about this, right? You could always go to the source, Nielsen Norman, right? They have a website which is the nngroup.com. They have a bunch of articles about how to do different things within
No,
design.
I mean, all of this content is there.
Yeah.
Beautiful, great. But like, how do I mean, it's also overwhelming, right?
Right. Oh yeah, right.
It's also
I get
like,
what you're saying. Yeah.
and I feel like a lot of students who might be watching this, the first thing if they want to do learn design, they'll download Figma, right? And they'll start
Yeah.
learning the tool.
Yeah, that's
Right.
the last thing you
Right?
should be
And no
doing.
YouTube video is going to teach you sort of design thinking, because
Oh,
you can only learn that by actually sort of doing it, right?
Doing it, yeah, absolutely.
So then, I mean, of course, you can come, do
Learn
the
here, yeah.
MasterCamp,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
you go to go to a school that you went to, what.
Yeah.
But say I want to do it myself. Right? A lot of people are self-taught UX folks.
Yeah.
How do they hit the pedal?
Well, there is a very fun way of doing it, which is if you want to do it yourself, you look for a real world problem to solve.
Okay.
Right? And it doesn't have to be something huge like, oh, how do I solve world hunger? No, like, something very trivial. Uh, that's how most products are made, in fact, right? Like finding that gap in the market, right? That's just somebody waking up one day and realizing that there is this problem that nobody has solved, right? So doing that, right? Just say you don't have to solve world hunger, but maybe you want to find a way to distribute food near your house, right? How do you streamline that process, right? So then you do what we just spoke about. You research first. You go out and see, are there people in need outside my house, outside my colony, outside my gated community? Are there people who are standing in line or just roaming about? That they
Right.
need food, right? Or you research
So you
that.
start solving a problem that
Yeah.
you're facing close to you.
Yeah.
And then start sort of going through the discovery and the research
yeah,
and
and
all
then
of
maybe
that.
you come up with a product for it, right? Maybe you come up with a product for your gated community where people can just tell you how much food they're going to donate over a course of 1 week, right? So that's what we call creating a problem statement, a how might we statement, right?
So let's say you're hiring off of a college or off of a program where there are fresh UI UX graduates, right? They don't have work experience,
Yeah.
so they don't have a portfolio per se. So then would you want that they have some sort of a problem that they have solved and have something to show for that problem?
Ideally that works in
Mm.
your favor, right? Like you don't need to have a portfolio, but maybe you just written an essay about how you have solved a real world problem. That
Even
works in
that
your
is enough.
favor.
Okay.
That is enough. Also, like, if you, like I said, if you have intent to learn, curiosity to know, and just like an overall aptitude to sort of understand how things work, right? That's sometimes enough. And the way you sort of present that shows in any interview. Like you'll know whether or not someone wants to learn, whether or not they're curious about their craft, whether or not they have that aptitude to understand the intricacies that make up their craft, right? And that's all you need to do, honestly. Yeah, and that's enough to get hired at one thing as well.
All right. That actually like clarifies a lot.
Yeah.
So now I'm hired, right?
Yeah,
I'm a
yeah.
whatever first year UI UX designer
First year.
or whatever,
College se
associate,
nikle liya,
junior,
Pratham Babu.
whatever. I mean, I don't know what the nomenclature is,
Yeah.
But then how does my career progress from there on, right? From software developer, I know I can become a senior, then architect, and this
Oh,
and
yeah,
this, right?
yeah.
And then CTO, whatever, right? So what does the pathway look like for a designer?
Dude, design right now is probably the most exciting industry to be in because there is no set path forward. You can become a trailblazer in your first year. You've done something that nobody else in design has seen because there is so much scope to know all these things. But on a more traditional front, yeah, you start off as a junior UX designer. We actually don't call our freshers as juniors or
Juniors, okay.
freshers. We call them UX designers because like if you don't think of yourself as a designer, then nobody else will. So no junior, right? We do have senior. We don't have junior. We have UX designer. Then that's 1, 2, 3, and then we have senior UX designer 1, 2, 3, right?
Got it.
So we do have traditional roles that way, right? But that's pretty much it in from that front. That like first 2 years you're there, you're UX design 3, then 2, then 1, then senior, then associate lead, then lead, then design manager, studio head, and then then you start your own studio because you just learned how to run one. So that's a 10-year path for you right there, 10, 12-year path for you there, where every 2 to 3 years you're getting a promotion and you're going through, right? But like I said, like there is just so much scope that even within the first 3 years, you could essentially want to learn a specialization within design.
What are some specializations within design?
Information architect, you have project discovery specialist, you have what do you call component design specialist. Components is basically all those little things that
Like
you see in
buttons
design.
and interactions and like the shadows.
Everything, literally
The
everything.
materials,
Yes, everything. Like even the material, exactly. Shadows are actually components.
Okay.
So someone, in fact, one of the instructors for the MasterCamp, Suhail, is a component designer. Right? He's a UI designer, a product designer, but he specializes in creating components. And he's created components for Urban Clap's design system. Like Urban Clap created their own design system. Urban Company, sorry, now. Urban Company decided create their own design system called Align DS. It's on Figma, and that's actually a big thing for a Indian design agency to have their own component design system on Figma community, because Figma community doesn't just take anything. Like there's a whole set of guidelines that they have to follow. So Suhail Gupta was a part of that. He was actually a major part of that, right? And he's he has about same 5, 6 years of experience, because how old is the industry?
Oh wow, so he's that young.
He's that young. He's actually younger than I am. He's in his late 20s.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so it's a young industry and there's a lot of potential to
Interesting.
learn so much.
Because it's a young industry, there is no person who's like 48 and he's saying, I'm going to be the chief design officer. You could be 26 and be the.
No way, yeah.
So that's actually quite interesting because you don't have to wait for your turn.
Oh no, not at all. Not at all. We have people who are leads at 25 years of age, right? 25. One of the instructors, Antra, has been a lead with us since last year. She turned lead when she's 27, right?
I worked with her on a project.
You did. Yes, that's correct, right? Project, and you don't, yes, yes, exactly, right? Now, that entire team, you remember how young that team was. Shatakshi is what, 23, 24, right? So you have people who are like, senior designers at 24 years of age, 25 years of age, out of college, So again, like if you have that aptitude, if you have that curiosity, there is no stopping you. You can be we have acceleration programs at office just because of how quickly people learn.
Yeah.
You
I
know,
doubt there is a chief design officer in the world who's like more than 40.
there can't be
There
unless you're
can't be.
Johnny Ivy. Like,
Yeah.
you know, at which point then you've already been doing this for
Correct,
some
correct.
time. And even then, that's
He
industrial
was the Apple
design.
guy, right?
Yeah. So even then, that's industrial design,
Mm.
right? Like it's a different thing that has permeated into UX design. But
Mm.
yeah, there is like, you know, our co-founders are sub 40. Are like Manik is 33. He's founded this
Correct.
design studio,
Right.
right? And same with Devanshu. He's 37.
Correct.
Nothing like in the grand scheme of things, in like how people are portrayed as founders,
Mhm.
they are not those gray-haired, suited-up people,
Correct.
right? They look like
So,
you and
so
me.
in terms of career acceleration and career progress,
Yeah.
possibly like there is not a faster route to the C-suite than
Oh,
in design.
God, no. Yeah,
Yeah.
dude.
Marketing,
Absolutely.
you'll have to wait 25 years.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Even then, you will need to have like so many different specializations that you've done. In design, you can go to chief design officer
Mm.
just by knowing just like good research methodologies. Like, you know, if you follow
So design essentially democratizes,
a lot of, yeah,
right,
that's actually a
talent,
very
right?
good word. Yeah.
Right. So you don't have to have certain amount of experience or number of degrees.
Nope.
I mean, it doesn't matter what college you're from.
No,
In fact,
yeah.
we didn't even discuss your college or
No,
which
no, God,
it
no,
does
yeah.
not matter. What matters is your work.
Absolutely.
Completely, right?
Absolutely.
And that's not the case with engineering or business because IIT, whatever, IIM,
Yeah.
MIT, Stanford, that plays a role. Here it does not.
It does not. It does not. Because again, like we've had people who've not had any design education, for
Mm.
example. Both the co-founders of design, One Thing Design Studio, don't have a design education. They're both engineers, right? We have people from like the fashion industry who become designers. The other day, I interviewed somebody who was a dentist. I'm
No
not even
way.
making that up.
Yeah.
Yeah, they completed their dental
Architects
education.
also probably.
Architects, quite a few, in fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, architects, quite a few. Even like you said, BCom, BBA, like, you know, it doesn't matter because
Matter.
it's all about, you know, knowing, having the curiosity to know how things work. That's it. And willingness to sort of dive deep into that problem and wanting to fix it.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Awesome. So I have a few like quick questions, like a quick fire kind of a
Yeah,
thing.
go
Okay.
ahead, man, go for it.
So what are 3 things that you really love about your job?
The people, for sure. Um, the products that I'm building, the problem statements that these products come in with, and just the fact that I want to wake up in the morning and do it, because that alone is enough sometimes.
Okay. What are 3 things that frustrate you about design?
3 things that frustrate me about design: the lack of common sense surrounding good design sometimes, right? Not much frustrates me about design, like, and I don't want to talk about clients right now, but like,
Please go ahead.
yeah, but lack of just common sense, application of common sense while it comes to designing, right? Lack of empathy towards users that you're designing for. That I think is number one for me, and just people not understanding what design actually means.
Yeah, done. So what would you rather work in an agency or in a company that's building one product and just improve and iterate on that same product?
Oof. Okay, you beated me with that question, man. Like, I think environment-wise agency, and in terms of tangible output of what I'm doing and knowing every day product. Yeah,
And so
but agency all day actually, if I
So
think
what would you
about it.
recommend like new folks who are just starting off in the industry? Should they think about joining an agency or should they look for a job at Cred?
If you want to fast track it, agency, for sure. Yeah. But you know, both comes with their pros and cons. Like if you just want to like work as work on one thing, and just like, you know, build your skills from one angle, then you can do product, right? But if you just want to like know what's out there in the world and work on a bunch of different things and fast track what you're doing in the design world, then agency for sure.
Got it.
Yeah.
Cool. Are there any questions I should have asked you that I have not, that you were looking forward to answer?
No. I think you've been a very good host, Pratham. I think you've asked me all that I thought you would ask me. Uh,
One final question then,
yeah, of course, yeah.
and I want to talk about, design and education together,
Mhm.
right? How do you teach design in a way that makes sense? And that's its own design problem,
Oh yeah,
right?
yeah. It's a good
I've seen some like design schools across the world
yeah.
that produce horrible designers, right?
Yeah.
So as you were thinking about crafting the course for this master camp, for the design master camp, uh, how did you approach this problem, and what is the solution that we have come up with?
The only thing I wanted while crafting out the curriculum here was just I wanted it to be hands-on. That's the only thing I thought of. That design as a skill, as a career, is not something that can be taken care of through rote learning. And we spoke about this earlier as well.
Mm.
That like how like the education system itself
Mm.
here is so entrenched in rote learning, in just stuffing you full of like just things, not even knowledge, just things
Mm-hmm.
that you have to go out and just write out, and then somebody grades it, and then you get a paper
Yeah.
that says you did well. Design can't be taught that way.
Mm.
Design needs to be something that's hands on. Design needs to be something that's taught through experience, right? How can you be a user experience designer if you don't have any experience with users,
Yeah.
right? So that's what I wanted to do when we were building out the curriculum. So what we did was essentially break down the process we use,
Mm.
right, and work that backwards into something that is an education,
Mm.
right, more than just rote learning.
So what can the students expect?
Yeah, so they can expect like I said, hands-on research. They'll have to come in and they'll have to work with actual users, go out there in the world and actually talk to users. If they have ideas for products, they'll need to go and see what their competitors are doing, and more than that, they'll have to see how users are interacting with their competitors products. We call that contextual inquiry. So all of that is going to be there. Then you have some group crafting exercises where people think design is all digital, but when you think about it, design has been around for centuries, right? So you have to go out there and experience that, because those are your predecessors, right? Those are your forefathers. Those are the ones who built the levels that have reached here now, right?
So it's more like an apprenticeship
Oh yeah, absolutely,
rather than a
absolutely.
course. If I
Yeah. I don't think of it as something that you come in and we tell you like four things, laws of design, and then you go back and you learn it and come back and tell us, "नहीं, मेरे को नहीं चाहिए, तुमको ये-"
Okay.
I don't remember any of the laws of designs, just FYI.
Yeah.
I don't remember the 10 heuristic principles. I know where to look for them though, right? And I know how they work, and that's what matters, and that's what we're teaching you here.
All right. On that note,
All right,
thanks so
man.
much for your time. Sorry, there you go. All right, thank you so much for coming in. This
Yeah,
was
no,
amazing. I think we had a
brother.
great,
Thank you for
great
having me.
conversation.
Absolutely, man.
We are past our time.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, damn. All right, look at that.
So clearly, it was a good conversation. But
All
thanks
right.
again. I think lots
Thank
of
you.
questions answered.
Yeah, absolutely.
And feel free to comment, guys, if you have any questions.
Like, share, and subscribe, as they say.
All of that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you.